All right, so March Madness, right. I mean, it's everywhere this time of year. Upsets, brackets busted, the whole deal. But have you ever, like, stopped and actually thought about how this whole thing got started?
Yeah, it's easy to get swept up in the excitement of the moment, right? I mean, filling out those brackets, watching the games, it's a whole experience. But taking a step back and looking at the history, where it all began, that's where things get really interesting.
Totally. So we've got a couple of great resources to guide us today as we dive deep into March Madness. We've got this really thorough guide on NCAA.com, like it's super comprehensive, and then this transcript from a YouTube video all about the history of the bracket.
And those two sources, they really complement each other well, offering different perspectives. So our mission today is to give everyone a clear picture of how this phenomenon, this iconic event, came to be. From its very first iteration to all the traditions, the upsets, the buzzer beaters, everything that makes March Madness what it is today.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, right? Back to the very beginning. The NCAA guide tells us the first ever men's Division I basketball tournament, like the official championship, was held in 1939.
1939. Think about that for a second. Only 8 teams competed.
8 teams. I can't even imagine. Like, that's barely even a single round in today's tournament.
It's almost quaint compared to the scale we see today. And the first ever champion, Oregon. They beat Ohio State to take home the title.
Wow. Oregon. I mean, they're a good program, but not exactly what you think of when you think of, like, historical basketball powerhouses. Now, contrast that with today, where we've got 68 teams battling it out. That's after the first 4 was introduced in 2011.
Huge difference, right? Talk about a massive expansion and all that drama packed into a few short weeks.
So we've got the tournament starting in 39, but what about the name itself? March Madness. I feel like that phrase has been around forever.
You're right, it feels ingrained in our culture. But what's fascinating is that the NCAA.com guide points out the phrase itself, March Madness, it was first used in 1939.
Same year as the first tournament. What a coincidence.
Yeah, but here's the thing, it wasn't in relation to the NCAA tournament. It was actually an Illinois high school official, Henry V. Porter. He used it to describe, get this, high school basketball.
No way. So how did it make the jump to the big leagues, so to speak?
Well, it kind of floated around in the basketball world for a while, the term March Madness, but it didn't really stick to the NCAA tournament until much later.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, a phrase can have a life of its own before it finds its, like, permanent home.
Exactly. And in this case, the YouTube transcript credits Brent Musburger with really solidifying the connection. During the 1982 tournament coverage, he used the phrase a lot, and that's when it really took off.
So 82 is when March Madness became March Madness. But what about the bracket itself? Like, that's such a core part of the whole experience, right? Millions of people filling them out, trying to predict those upsets. It's a huge deal. And the YouTube transcript actually traces its origins way, way back. Like, we're not even talking basketball anymore.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting. We're going all the way back to 1851 to the world of chess.
Chess. What does chess have to do with March Madness?
Well, the YouTube video points to the first international chess tournament in London. It was organized by a guy named Howard Staunton.
Okay.
And this is key. They didn't have any kind of official ranking system back then for chess players, so Staunton had to come up with a way to pair up the players for the tournament. And get this, he used a ballot box with numbered tickets. Each player drew a number, and that determined their opponent. Totally random.
That's so wild. Just totally random matchups. I mean, I guess that's one way to do it.
Yeah, kind of a chaotic way to determine the best chess player in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this random pairing method, combined with the single elimination format, where a single loss eliminates you, that laid the foundation for what we now know as the bracket.
So you're saying that the very idea of a bracket win or go home that didn't start with basketball, it started with chess.
Precisely. And that's why this YouTube transcript is so valuable. It gives us this broader context. Now, the single elimination format, it didn't really stick in chess. It wasn't the best way to determine the strongest player over the long term. But the idea caught on, and it spread to other sports, including, eventually, college basketball.
So, from chess to hoops. But how did we get from this, like, conceptual idea to the actual visual bracket that we all know and love, or maybe sometimes hate?
Well, it's all about the visual representation, right? As the tournament progresses, you've got the winners advancing, and the way it's drawn out, it literally looks like a bracket. You know, like the punctuation mark.
Ah, I get it. So the visual representation of those elimination rounds, that's where the term bracket comes from. So we've got the tournament, the name, the bracket, all the pieces are starting to fall into place. But one thing I'm curious about, both the NCAA guide and the YouTube transcript mention this other tournament, the NIT, which actually started a year before the NCAA tournament.
The NIT, that's right. It began in 1938. And for a while, it was actually considered the more prestigious tournament.
Really? So how did the NCAA tournament overtake it? Like, how did it become the big dance?
Well, the NCAA guide really highlights the role of Harold Olson. He was the coach at Ohio State at the time, and he was instrumental in pushing for the creation of the NCAA tournament. He saw the success of the NIT and felt that the Coaches Association needed its own national championship.
So a bit of rivalry there, maybe. But if anything you can do, I can do better.
Perhaps. And to be fair, in those early years, the format of the NCAA tournament, it was pretty basic, very much in line with what Staunton had done with that chess tournament. 8 teams, single eliminations, split into East and West regions, very straightforward.
And then it started to grow. The NCAA.com guide lays it all out. 16 teams in 1951, then it doubled to 32 teams in 1975, and then the big jump to 64 in 1985. And of course, the first 4 rounds were added in 2011, bringing us to the current 68 teams.
It's been quite a journey, right? From 8 teams to 68, a testament to the growth of college basketball, I suppose. But there's this other really intriguing point that the YouTube transcript brings up. Even with the bracket format in place, filling out brackets, like making predictions and all that, it didn't immediately become a national pastime.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, you'd think as soon as there's a bracket, people would want to fill it out. So why the delay?
Well, the transcript suggests a couple of factors were at play. First, those early brackets, they weren't always as straightforward as they are now. The number of teams changed a lot, and sometimes there were even buys for some teams. So it wasn't this clean, easy-to-predict format that we're used to.
Yeah, that makes sense. If the format keeps changing, it's hard to get invested in predicting the outcomes.
And then there's the UCLA factor. They absolutely dominated college basketball in the 1960s and 70s, winning 10 championships in 12 years. Like, can you imagine?
It was basically the John Wooden show, right? Legendary coach.
Exactly. And so when one team is that dominant, it kind of takes the suspense out of it. Why bother filling out a bracket when you know who's probably going to win it all?
Yeah, it's like filling out a bracket where you already know the ending. They're very exciting. So when did things start to shift? When did bracket mania truly begin?
Well, the YouTube video points to 1975 as a turning point. It was the year UCLA's dynasty finally ended their last championship in that amazing run, and it's also the year the tournament settled into a more standardized 32-team bracket.
So things started to feel a little more unpredictable, and the format was more consistent. Perfect recipe for bracket fever to take hold.
Exactly. And get this, the video actually shares the story of what's considered the first known bracket pool. It happened in 1977 at a place called Jody's Club Forest in Staten Island.
Staten Island. That's where the magic happened.
Apparently, 88 people participated in this pool. You got points for correct predictions, and the points were worth more as the tournament went on. So if you picked the champion correctly, you got a big payout. It was a pretty simple setup. But it's fascinating to think about how this small gathering in a bar really set the stage for what's become a nationwide, even global obsession.
It really is incredible, right? From 88 people in a Staten Island bar to literally millions of people filling out brackets today, both online and on paper. And it's all thanks to that simple idea, born out of necessity in a chess tournament over a century and a half ago. It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
Absolutely. And if you're filling out a bracket right now, you're part of this lineage, this tradition that connects back to that chess tournament. I mean, who would have thought?
All right, so we've talked about the evolution of the tournament, the name, the bracket, the rise of bracket pools. But we can't forget about all the incredible moments that have made March Madness so legendary. The upsets, the buzzer beaters, the individual performances. And the NCAA.com guide is a treasure trove of information on all that.
Right. Like, what about the upsets? That's what everyone loves, right? That moment when a Cinderella team takes down a giant.
Absolutely. I mean, who could forget UMBC, 16th seed taking down Virginia, the top seed, in 2018, the first time a 16 seed ever beat a #1 seed. I remember exactly where I was when I saw that score. I was floored.
It was an incredible moment, and it totally busted everyone's brackets.
Oh, yeah, mine included.
Yeah.
And then FDU, another 16 seed, beating Purdue, a #1 seed. Just last year.
It seems like those top seeds need to watch out. You never know who's coming for them. And it's not just the upsets that make March Madness so thrilling, it's the comebacks, too. NCAA.com lists the biggest comeback in tournament history as BYU overcoming a 25-point deficit to beat Iona back in 2012.
25 points. I mean, that's almost insurmountable. It's moments like those that show you why they call it March Madness. And then there are the scoring records, some of them just mind-blowing. Loyola Marymount putting up a staggering 149 points against Michigan in 1990. I mean, that's insane. They scored almost 150 points in a single game.
It's the highest scoring game in tournament history, and it really speaks to that Loyola Marymount team's style of play.
And speaking of history, we can't forget about the dynasties. Kentucky holds the record for the most tournament appearances. North Carolina has the most wins. And then there's UCLA with a mind-boggling 11 championships.
Yeah, those are the programs that have really left their mark on the tournament, consistently performing at the highest level year after year.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the biggest takeaway is just how much March Madness has evolved over the years. From those humble beginnings, just 8 teams back in '39, to this global phenomenon it is today. And to think that the tradition of the bracket itself, something that feels so central to the whole experience, can be traced back to a 19th century chess tournament, it's just mind-blowing.
It really highlights how seemingly unrelated events and ideas can intersect in the most unexpected ways, shaping our traditions and our culture.